By coincidence, I ran into my boss at a fancy French restaurant. He said, spitefully, "Can a mere part-timer afford to come to such an upscale place?" I was taken aback by his rude comment, but calmly replied, "It's to celebrate my sister's college admission." He looked at my sister, Sari, who was sitting in a wheelchair, and laughed sarcastically. "Oh, I see." What he said next was so shocking that it engulfed me in a swirl of anger. My name is Maddie Turner. I'm a 23-year-old currently working as a part-time office worker for a local food company called Triple Star Foods. Even though it's a part-time job, I've learned a lot from working at the food company. I've never had a part-time job before because I was always focused on my studies, so everything is new and enlightening. One day, as I was heading to work, I saw a young boy trying to dash across the pedestrian crossing in front of me. In the next moment, he almost got hit by a car. Despite the red light, he had run out onto the road. I shouted, "Watch out!" and collapsed onto my knees. Thanks to the driver's quick thinking, a collision was avoided, but the boy sat down crying on the spot. Several adults nearby rushed over to him. A woman next to me said with a frown, "That was close." However, seeing me still trembling on the ground, she turned her attention to me, asking, "Are you okay?" I'm sorry, I'm fine." Slowly getting up, I smiled at the woman and quickly left the scene. My personal and professional life is fulfilling, and I'm sure that by all accounts it's smooth sailing. However, I have an unforgettable past, and the trauma from the past constantly torments me with guilt. I have a younger sister, Sari, who is 5 years younger than me. Sari got involved in a traffic accident in the first grade of elementary school and became disabled in her legs. I still vividly remember that day, the day Sari had the accident. Sari and I were very close, and we were a well-known pair of sisters in our neighborhood. We both took ballet lessons, and people said our dancing together looked endearing and very beautiful. Originally, I was the one learning ballet, but Sari said, "I want to do ballet just like my big sister," and she started learning too. I had won awards in ballet competitions several times, and Sari would see that and push herself, saying, "I'll do my best too." The day Sari had the accident was also a ballet class day, and we were supposed to go to the class together. However, that day, due to a trivial matter, we argued, and I, being upset, said, "I'll go ahead," and went to the class alone, leaving Sari behind. It was rare for us sisters to argue like that. Sari must have been in a hurry, trying to catch up with me, and seemed to run desperately. Because she prepared in a rush, her pointe shoes were sticking out of her back. At the crosswalk with a blinking pedestrian light, her pointe shoe fell out. As Sari bent down to pick it up, she was run over by a car turning right. When I heard about the accident at the ballet school, I froze and couldn't move. I was taken to the hospital by my instructor. My hands were cold and I couldn't stop trembling. Sari's life was not in danger, but she became disabled in her legs and was forced to live in a wheelchair. I was distraught and apologized to my parents, saying, "I'm sorry." If I hadn't left her behind, Sari wouldn't have had the accident. And when I cried and said that, my parents hugged me and comforted me, saying, "It couldn't be helped." From that moment on, I felt guilt and remorse towards Sari. No matter how many times my parents or those around me would say it was unavoidable, my heart never lightened up. Even when Sari herself told me, "Don't worry about it," I quit ballet and made up my mind to protect Sari for the rest of my life. In elementary school, I made sure to explain the situation to her classmates so that Sari wouldn't be bullied or harassed. I sought understanding not only in school but everywhere to prevent Sari from being bullied. Thanks to those efforts, Sari grew up without any harassment in both elementary and middle school. Seeing Sari happy, I was relieved and glad. Sari graduated from high school without any problems and went on to college. To celebrate Sari's college admission, I decided to treat her to a meal at a fancy restaurant. During my lunch break at work, I told my close colleagues about my lunch plans with my sister. My colleagues commented, "You two are such close sisters. I'm envious." The atmosphere was friendly until Chris York, my boss, came in and the mood became tense.
"It's fine to enjoy, but make sure you finish your work before you go, alright?"
Suddenly spoken to in an intimidating manner, I widened my eyes. It seemed that Chief York had overheard our conversation. He then snorted with a smirk and began to act as if he was so troubled, saying,
"Part-time workers have it so easy. I have so much work. But I guess it can't be helped since I'm an elite that the company expects a lot from. I have a business dinner after this too."
He frowned, saying,
"I have no time to rest."
But his mouth curled into a smirk. My colleagues and I were disgusted by his obvious superiority act, but out of fear of further confrontation, we responded with a cheerful, "Is that so?" to get through the situation. After Chief York left, one of my colleagues remarked,
"He's at it again with his superiority act."
Chief York had a high sense of pride and liked to brag about his high academic and professional achievements, often belittling others, which made him unpopular among the employees. One of the colleagues told me,
"Matey, don't let him get to you."
I smiled and said, "I'm fine." And as soon as work was over, I hurried to the meeting place. Meet up with Sari at a rendezvous point and head to the upscale restaurant. Upon arrival at the restaurant, the staff greeted us warmly, saying, "We've been expecting you." Due to a customer just leaving and the crowded floor, we decided to wait a bit for Sari, who is in a wheelchair. While we were waiting, wouldn't you know it, Chief York shows up. The moment Chief York saw me, he looked puzzled. Although I had a bad feeling, I greeted him, saying, "Hello." However, he didn't return the greeting and slightly remarked,
"You, just a part-timer, can't afford to dine here?"
Taken aback by his rude command, I calmly responded, "It's a celebration for my sister's university admission." Chief York looked at Sari in her wheelchair and sneered sarcastically.
"Your sister's in a wheelchair, huh? How can she live a decent life?"
His harsh words left me stunned. How could he say such a thing? How could he utter such cruel words to a young woman with a disability? But Chief York just laughed and said,
"It must be hard for you too, right? Not earning much as a part-timer. Your sister and you are just society's trash. Why don't you eat at home?"
Both Sari and I were dumbfounded by his outrageous remarks. This must be the first time Sari has ever been spoken to so harshly. She seemed so pitiable, frozen in place. It's one thing to attack me, but I couldn't stand him hurling insults at my sister. But Chief York just grinned, looking as if he was proud of telling the truth. "I'm sorry," Sari whispered softly. She must have felt like it was her fault, being berated by a stranger. She seemed sad and looked at me as if asking for help. I told Sari, "You don't need to say sorry," and tried to comfort her. Then I stepped forward, glaring at Chief York. "Apologize to my sister right now, or there will be consequences." To my own surprise, my voice was icy cold, but the man in front of me, likely due to his pride, responded,
Why should I apologize? After all, it's the truth, right? A part-time working sister and a sister in a wheelchair. You're just a poor family.
Instead of apologizing, he continued to mock. I finally lost my patience. Call the manager. I felt it was pointless to argue with this man any further, so I called for the restaurant's manager. The manager hurried over and asked, "Is something wrong?" "This man is not suitable for this place. Please ask him to leave." When I suggested his reservation be cancelled, Chief York looked furious.
Who do you think you are?
"Who listen to the likes of you, a poor person?" Chief York sneered. Then he shouted, "Apologize!" He demanded an apology from me, even though he wouldn't apologize for hurling insults at Sari. I calmly stepped forward, feeling pity for how foolish he was.
Manager. Never mind. Get me the owner.
"I am the owner," I replied, and Chief York was momentarily stunned. He blinked several times, looking at me in disbelief.
No way. Don't lie. There's no way you're the owner.
"No, it's not a lie. She is indeed the owner of this establishment," the manager confirmed assertively. "Please leave," I coldly said and pointed towards the exit. In fact, Sari and I were the daughters of a wealthy family that owned several French fine dining restaurants and other dining establishments, and I, myself, was in charge of several restaurants as the owner. Nevertheless, there is a reason I have to juggle 2 jobs. In the future, after Sari graduates from university, we had decided to start businesses in different industries together. Because of this, our father suggested,
Why don't you get some experience in a general company while you can?
Indeed, if I can gain experience now,
it might be better to have that experience under my belt. I thought it might be a valuable experience, so I took a part-time job at Triple Star Foods. Though I chose a part-time position to ensure it didn't interfere with my work, Chief York assumed I was just incapable. Learning that I was the owner of a French fine dining restaurant, Chief York's face turned pale. However, he still looked defiant, as if ready for confrontation. Though it's crude to say this, you mentioned I couldn't earn much. Actually, I earn many times more than you. And my sister will also start a business soon and probably earn much more than you as well. I told him that and I took him down a notch. Chief York glared at me sharply. But before he could say anything, the president of my company, Triple Star Foods, and the executives from our business partners arrived. When the president and the executives saw me, they brightened up and said,
"Oh, the owner is here too,"
with a smile. I've been attending industry networking events with executives since my student days, brought along by my father, so I know a lot of people.
I became a part-time worker at Triple Star Foods because the president knew me from the past. And he was a good golf buddy with my father. It all started when the president said, "Come work at our company for some real-world experience." I turned to the president and the executives with a serious look on my face. And then I said, "I regret that I have to ask you if you will be able to leave for today." The executives began to murmur among themselves. The president tilted his head and asked, "What's going on?" I explained Chief York's behavior to them. Everyone looked at Chief York with a look of disbelief. However, Chief York shouted,
"It's all made up!"
denying he said any such thing.
"Boss, I work in the same department as her, and she makes many mistakes. I had to point them out a lot. No, she's holding a grudge and making up things I never said."
He started saying unbelievable things. Furthermore, he claimed that I, being the boss's daughter with a high pride and no real-world experience, was lying and nitpicking over minor issues. "Stop lying! Have some shame!"
"Then show me the evidence."
I was taken aback. Suddenly, Sari said with a smile, "I have evidence. I recorded your rudeness. Just because I'm in a wheelchair doesn't mean I can't do anything." Sari took out her smartphone and played the recording. Chief York's voice was clearly recorded just as I described. Hearing this, both the president and the executives turned pale. Some even covered their mouths in shock. Someone murmured, "Unbelievable! How cruel!" I firmly told the president, not only his rudeness, but also his attitude of insisting that I'm lying might make me reconsider our contract with your company. The president, sensing the crisis, immediately showed an expression of deep concern. He pleaded,
"I'll fire Chris immediately. Please don't terminate our dealings."
It seemed that despite being on good terms with my parents, the president might have thought overlooking Chris's behavior would break their business relationship. It was indeed too rude and irreparable. But York didn't understand the gravity of this situation. His face turned red and shouted,
"I can't accept being fired. Haven't I been a star performer for the company?
I've been in a wheelchair for a long time, but you are the first person to mock me like that. That's thanks to the sister you've been looking down on. She's always been considerate to make sure I don't have to go through anything unpleasant." Suddenly, Sari began to speak. I was surprised by her firm voice and the content of her words. "You might be a star performer, but isn't it strange for someone who doesn't understand others' feelings to be considered a star? I'm going to start a company and serve as its representative. No matter how good they are at their job, I won't consider someone like you a star." Sari then turned to the president and said, "Please give him the punishment he deserves. People like you are the trash of society, aren't you?" Chief York was unable to retort to Sari's words, and he was taken by the president and forced half-heartedly to leave the restaurant. A few days have passed since then. Chief York was fired. I had already resigned as a part-time employee and was preparing to start a joint venture with my sister Sari. I was surprised that Sari had developed such a strong spirit, and I was happy and a bit lonely at the same time. But Sari told me, "It's thanks to you, sis. I've always admired how strong you are and wanted to be like you." Sari said she was grateful to me for protecting her, even though she blamed herself for her crippled leg and quit ballet, which she loved so much. She knew everything. Sari confirmed that she's okay now. But from now on, I want you to treat me as an equal, not as a younger sister to be protected. Let's support each other as fellow business leaders. I shook hands firmly with Sari. Of course, I'll continue to treat her as my sister in private, but in business, I decided to work together and help each other grow. Sari is no longer just someone to be protected. She's my reliable partner.